The last presenters are from the work package 5. Will be Anna Walker, the first one. Hannah, could you please present? Thank you. Don't forget to turn on the microphone.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, thank you very much for coming back after lunch. I'm going to talk to you about my project today. So the project is about measuring the impact of circular economy practices on sustainability aspects. You've already heard some of this topic from Henrika, but now we're going to look at this topic a bit more from a private sector perspective, and in particular more from a meso-level perspective, which I have also conceptualized now with my supervisors together to be more like an interfirm level. So not the macro level, not the micro level, the firm perspective, but like between firms. Content the same as the others. Not going to go deeper into that. So introduction to my research into how I conceptualize this meso level. Well, I was thinking, as we've already heard from Santi as well, that actually circular economy is just rebranding or looking at it from a different perspective of concepts which are already known. On a meso perspective, that's in particular the industrial ecology and the industrial symbiosis more in particular. And then now this new term which has come up, which is the circular supply chain management. And circular supply chain management is actually just closed-loop supply chain management and sustainable supply chain management or green supply chain management together with the goal to close the loop, so to say. And reverse logistics, of course. So the research need here is that we have limited contributions to evaluate whether the circular economy actors and networks actually perform according to the sustainability image, because many people say, if it's going to be circular, it's going to be sustainable. Well, let's measure first and see if that's true or not. Then we have a lot of overlapping concepts. We have circular economy, we have industrial ecology, we have circular supply chain management, we have closed-loop supply chain management and reverse logistics. So how does this all come together? And I try to make a framework, or at least from my head, so it would always not go from one conceptual level to the next. So we have the overarching concepts, which is industrial ecology, sustainable development, circular supply chain management now, and circular ecology. And there we have two operationalization approaches to which we would apply measurement, or which we would measure. And these are, on the one side, the product cycle-based measurement approaches, and on the other hand, the approaches which are geographically, or which are more geographically defined. So here we would have the closed-loop supply chains on the left side and the reverse logistics. So the methods related to product cycles, and then on the other hand we would have methods related to industrial symbiosis and open loop supply chains. But of course, this is just a rough outline. They could also be mixed. That's the problem. But this are the two archetypes, so to say. Then what I've done a systematic literature review already back in when was that? In December. But then I realized that actually back then I didn't really know what I was looking for, so I'm going to do it again with the framework that I just showed you before. But I think from the first literature review there were still some tendencies which were still valid, and they were presented then later in the ISIE conference in Beijing as a poster. Then what I'm doing right now with my colleagues from the work package, Erik and Caitlin, we're doing a practitioner survey. And this is a qualitative survey, so it's not about how often a certain characteristic occurs, but it's more what kind of characteristics do actually occur. And the characteristics we are looking for is different kind of measurement approaches of different companies. What we've done a sampling procedure which was purposive, so it's not random companies from within Europe, but it is companies which are linked to a circular economy network. And there we have looked at circular economy networks in the Netherlands and Italy. We have sent surveys, that's actually not true, we have sent surveys to 850 companies And that's also not true anymore. We have now 110 replies from companies and around 50 companies which are available for follow-up interviews. We've done this with an online survey, with SurveyMonkey, and personalized email invitations. So it was quite a lot of work to look at all the company websites and see which would be the most suitable person to send that to. Then we also had a collaboration with Mercato Circolare in Italy and Atlante dell'Economia Circolare. So Mercato Circolare, it's a company that has an app which gathers all the circular initiatives within Italy, or many, not all. And then the same is actually true for the Atlante dell'Economia Circolare. And then we also we had a collaboration with Veneto Green Tech Cluster as well, and with Circle Economy in the Netherlands. So they announced this in the newsletters that was kind of the way we were spreading, and we had like several very insistent reminders. So now, since today is the last day that the survey is open. Maybe we'll get some more replies in by today. If you have any questions about survey or GDPR and those kind of things, we have dealt with it extensively. So if you have questions on that, just let me know later. Then to the research framework, this is a graph which I found nice because of the colors, but it also showed more or less my research framework. I'm doing a case study with Aptar. I'm going to start now, actually, which is from 1st of October. Where I'm going to do I'm going to implement I'm going to help them implement a new indicator measurement, or a new framework which helps to measure the circularity of a company, and it's based on the World Council for Sustainable Development. Is that correct? Yeah, World Council for Sustainable Development. World Business Council for Sustainable Development, exactly. And just today I found out that the Ellen MacArthur Foundation also has new methodology on that. So we will have to find out within the company which of the measurement frameworks we want to pilot. The idea would also be that this would be compared then to the Aptar facility in Suzhou in China to see what are the differences in the different geographical contexts to apply these methods. And since it's a global company, it would be a good example of like a global supply chain. Then the second one is the case study of Eco-Innovazione. With Eco-Innovazione, we're working with a public utility company, which are embedded in a regional, more in a regional system, where we hope that we can take this as a case study for the industrial ecology approach, more or less. And then lots of interviews all around with the people who were available for interviews from the survey. The key research activities, what have we done, or what have I done? I had 1 week, that's a long time, no, okay. This should be out because it's last year, so I already told you that. Then I had a 3-week with Eco-Innovazione in Padova, where I learned how to use the OpenLCA. Did my first LCA, and working with the product environmental footprint. And then this was also the time where I started to conceptualize the survey, and we had a lot of input from them and went directly also with the companies, so we could really see the feedback that this multi-utility company had to the survey, and from that we already changed a lot of questions. And that was how do you say that in English? It was a very educational process to see, but then it also made it a lot easier and made the advancement after of the survey a lot faster. Then we had 5 weeks at the Copernicus Institute, also with Walter and the Utrecht gang. It was a very nice time, and I'm very thankful for the project that we can have this exchange amongst each other, because maybe they're not like actual research outputs generated directly, but there's still a lot of exchange, which I think was really valuable. And then I had 1 week observation, as I said, between two conferences in China. It was 1 week in Suzhou. That's where you see us. We had to dress up like this for not health, but more like for hygiene reasons, so we don't bring our hair into the company and those kind of things. Yeah. So And it was good to like get in contact with the company, and especially like if we want to have data from them at a later stage, like we will know who to talk to and how to interact with them. Then yeah, now as I said, the 2-month stay with Aptar, and then it would also next year, probably in January, I will have another 2-month stay in Padova with Eco Innovazione and the multi-utility company to look at a more regional perspective and see like what are the, especially also the social indicators that would be needed to evaluate whether the circular economy solutions that they're implementing are actually sustainable. So research advancements, so I had this So in terms of publications, there are 2 publications. One is probably going to be submitted to the special issue of Industrial Ecology and Innovation, which is similar to the one that I have published at the ISDRS. And then the other thing, and the other thing is the one from the ISDRS, where I had a presentation and submitted a paper as well. Then, as I said before, I also presented a poster in Beijing at the ISIE conference. Yeah. Oh yeah, these are the pictures. And finally, I haven't put that in here yet. Let me see. Oh no, I have. Okay. So in terms of knowledge and skills development, we had some courses at our university about industrial ecology, and then a workshop by Tomasz about writing and publishing a scientific paper was more or less the same that we had in the PhD workshop in China. And then also something which I found highly valuable, where I went together with Erik. It was a summer school on regional LCA in Berlin. And what was very interesting there was that it was not purely academic. So there were a lot of industry players. There were a lot of local governments also involved. So in terms of networking, I think we did a lot of connections. I hope we can find ways to benefit from these connections right now. And now this is another training aspect, is now this week with the Cresting workshop right now. Dissemination methods, we plan to update the respondents of the survey with the results of the survey, and that they stay informed, that we have kind of a Cresting business community, so to say, of these 100 people who have replied. Then we presented, until now, we presented Erik and me, we presented the Cresting project at the school, at the summer school. And we had some positive feedback. People came up to us afterwards and were interested in what we were doing. Then I presented also the project, of course, at the second locations that we were, and we wrote a lot of things on the social media and the website. And finally, we're also part now with our department at the Italian Circular Economy Platform, the national, I don't know, it's an Italian abbreviation, but it's the national network of industrial symbiosis, the SUN, and the Rete LCA Italiana, so the Italian LCA network. The challenges that we had, well, the survey response rates, of course, because 850 translating to 110 is, I mean, it's not bad, but it's also it could be more, obviously. Then the planning of the joint papers, we have to write a paper together, the 3 of us, like how do we do it with the workload division. That's kind of, if you have any input on that, that would be very helpful. Overlap of segments and writing articles, like think of the, 2 articles which I would like or would have to write right now, but I'm starting another secondment, so how should that be balanced? Then balancing the needs of the secondment partner with the research goals, like how does that go together? And balancing, as others already said, traveling and creating actual content. Finally, there is actually the Italians, this Italian platform for circular economy, they want to do a survey on companies which are circular. So actually having exactly the same respondent base that we used, and we wanted to work together with them. We wanted to offer them to maybe learn from our experiences, but there was no response. It was a bit difficult, and it's a bit sad because probably now it will just be duplicated, the work. Yeah. So yeah, in terms of communication, there was a bit of a problem. But yeah, thank you for your attention.
Hello?
Thanks for the talk. Maybe I missed it, but could you explain a bit more about why you circulated the survey in Italy and the Netherlands and the kind of choices and decision making behind that?
Yeah. So it was it was first of all also practical, of course, because that's the two places where I have the secondments. However, we want to expand the survey also to other countries, so Portugal and France, because that's where we have Erik and Caitlin who are doing the secondments. Also, Taiwan is a potential option. Also, initially, what I found in my initial literature review that most of the evaluation approaches of circular economy come from Italy and from the Netherlands. So that was also one of the reasons why. So those two reasons basically. So one is more a bit convenience, and the other one is actually more being done actually in those regions.
More questions? Sure. 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much, Anna. So the next presenter will be Erik.
All right. Hello, everyone. For the people that don't know me, my name is Erik Roos Lindgren. I'm Dutch, but I live in Messina, Sicily. I'm also part of Work Package 5, 5.2 to be precise. So my direct colleagues are Anna Walker and Caitlin Opverkoeg. And my topic is the evaluation of circular economy at the company level. I'm supervised by Professor Roberta Salamone and Tatiana Reyes. So my research has 4 objectives. And the first one is to make an inventory of the available circular economy evaluation approaches. And that is focused on the company level. And the way that I'm trying to do that now, this will happen has happened in the first year, is by conducting a systematic literature review of the approaches available in the literature. In the second year, it's more about extracting the lessons from this process and trying to find out what the barriers and the limitations, but also the opportunities are for actually applying these evaluation approaches at company level. So the second year is more focused on the collaborative phase. So really engaging on the short term and the long term with some local companies, both on Sicily where I'm based, but also in France. And another very important part of this second year will be the survey that Anna just explained, where, by the way, she's doing the most work so far. There's also the 2 other objectives that are there are focused more on sort of the transdisciplinary part of the project. So it's moving from science to society, and it's about really improving company-level sustainability opportunities using circular economy. So that's going to be actually using circular economy and life cycle assessments to see how, in certain industrial case studies, their degree of sustainability can be improved. And for that, now in the process of setting up collaborations with a couple of organizations that are listed here. So we have an organic wine farm, Milazzo Vini, based on Sicily. We have Mangiatorella, which is the water bottling organization. We have Orange Telkom Carbon X. I think they produce bio charcoal, I guess, and also produce bio energy from that. And Iritech, which is a drip irrigation firm on Sicily. And these are some pictures that I wanted to show from one of the company visits that I did so far. This is in Agrigento province on Sicily. And I visited Milazzo Vini, the organic wine farm. And there is Dr. Donna explaining to some of the local workers all the technical details about the analysis of the certain plants and the chemical compounds that are needed. It was a nice lunch with some local cheese, of course. There I was talking with the marketing director, who was also the translator in this case, and the CEO of the company, who told me everything about how sustainability plays a role in their company strategy. Yeah, this was an amazing experience, and I really hope to work together with them more in the future. So just sort of a quick overview of the structure of my project. First, a literature review, seeing what's out there. Not only describing what's out there, but also saying something about it, critically reviewing it. Then from that, extracting some lessons, and then hopefully applying these lessons in practice with local organizations. And I think the most important thing in this complex figure is the feedback loop. So I know that the lessons that I will extract from literature and the framework that I will construct will probably be either too complex, too simple. It will probably not work in practice, and I really want to see what the company needs are in improving this framework and using this feedback from companies to actually make it workable and feasible in practice. Also interesting is perhaps to say that I have case studies, which are short-term collaborations, so I will make 2 or 3 company visits, have some interviews, and use their data. This is with organizations that already have some environmental accountancy frameworks in place and already have some data available. And the secondments are longer term and with more organizations that are also, for me, more interesting to spend longer time with, also because their maturity level in terms of sustainability is perhaps a bit lower. So the research progress, as I said before, I made an inventory of the available approaches that I could find in literature, and I will present much more about this on Wednesday. I found 62 of them, and I tried to construct a critical evaluation framework and say something about these approaches and say how they're different or similar in terms of scale, in terms of dimensions included, and also in terms of participatory approach. So if the proposed evaluation approach is actually used end-user input in the design process. And I'm working on that right now, and I'm really looking forward to receiving some feedback on that. Also, I have been establishing contact with some of these organizations and went to visit them and to talk with them. And I also went to visit some of my colleagues that are based in Pescara, also in Troyes. We went together to China. I went to this Italian network conference for LCA in Rome, and as Anna explained, to the Berlin Summer School that was about regional LCA. And also I'm working now on contributing to the survey, and we're going to discuss during this workshop on how to divide tasks there and how to do the interviews and interpret the data. And what I'm looking forward to do, and what is still quite challenging, is formalizing the interaction phase. So really think about building a theoretical foundation for interacting with organizations instead of just being there and observing. And there's some theory on that, but I think in sustainability science, and especially in circular economy, it's not necessarily well developed. So I'm looking for articles now that take the same approach, and I'm also looking into, I was really inspired by the people from Troyes, who are working on the design research methodology, for example, and I got some really good feedback there. And also I want to learn more about transdisciplinary case study theory. And this is something I want to work on in the coming month. It's also important to understand what the organizations that I want to collaborate with, how they actually work, how they operate, what their culture is, how they're structured. And for that, there's only one way to find out, and that's to be there and to look around and interview people. And from that, from the understanding of the organizations, I would like to prepare these first dynamic and flexible, which means that they're probably going to be not so useful in the beginning, circular economy evaluation frameworks. Then further distribution of the survey. If we're going to continue with Portugal and France, that's going to take some time to also make use of the circular economy networks there. I would like to identify more opportunities to collaborate with Crestingers, but also people from my local university in Messina. Being based in Sicily, sometimes difficult to communicate with organizations. It's very nice if there's a person in the room who could speak both English and Italian, but it's not always the case. And I can understand Italian now, but I cannot ask any questions, which make the interview quite awkward. It's also sometimes complicated to receive data. A lot of financial data, which I also want to include in the circular economy framework, is confidential, and they're not going to give it to you without signing an NDA. But then the question is, how do you work with that data scientifically if you signed an agreement that you cannot actually publish anything about it. So that's a negotiation process. It differs from company to company. Also, what I find interesting is to see how the concept of circular economy is developing so rapidly, and it seems to be changing already now, since the start of our project. And the rate at which papers are published is so high that it's sometimes difficult to keep up with the changing definitions and the changing interpretations. And that is something I think we could maybe talk about during this workshop as well. It's something that I'm struggling with a little bit. Yeah, as mentioned before, collaborations with local organizations, both on Sicily and in France. And also an interesting opportunity might be, thanks to Anna, to collaborate with these local circular economy networks. In Italy, in the Netherlands, in France, in Portugal. I think that's a really good hub to connect to local organizations in a sort of efficient way in terms of developing contacts and also in terms of dissemination, spreading the word, telling people what we're doing with Cresting. I'm in the process now of developing the inventory and critical review into an academic article. For the collaboration with the companies, I'm still in doubt whether to make separate articles of that or to compare them and how to structure this. And for the survey, we were thinking of maybe making the dissemination a bit more interactive and actually hosting a session instead of just publishing something, but actually actively engaging the people that contributed to it in sort of a more interactive session or presentation, workshop, whatever you want to call it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eric. Time for questions. Well, after lunch it's always complicated. Oh, one question over there.
I understand that you are still looking for the review work conducted, but you realize if there is any difference between the literature from research paper and gray reports according to the approaches?
Yeah. In the beginning, I was trying to combine and compare the evaluation approaches from academic literature and gray literature, but I found out that in gray literature, the methodology is way less well documented. So I had a couple of criteria, and I tried to apply them to both these approaches, but for the gray approaches, I often couldn't find out whether a participatory approach had been applied, which dimensions were exactly included, what the data requirements were, etc., etc. So I think it's still very interesting, but then I would have to do interviews with the people behind these indicators, just because the documentation is less structured.
Yeah. Because it means that some of that great literature could be things that are really done in practice.
Yeah.
So you should
take
that into account.
Exactly. Yeah. The connection with reality is actually
exactly.
sometimes much closer.
That's why I asked.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Good.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for your presentation. Do you have any insights on the people that are responding your survey? What's their profile? Which company, their department they work? Yeah.
I think Anna knows a lot more about this, but we targeted the survey particularly to certain people in the organizations that are involved with either sustainability or circular economy. So these are also the people we're trying to have interviews with. And most of the companies are connected to, if I'm right here, are connected to the local circular economy networks. Mm-hmm. So they sort of specifically market themselves as circular economy involved organizations.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so department-wise, do you know if they belong more to, for example, marketing, or more marketing?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And that's something I also found with talking to some of the Sicilian companies, mm-hmm. that you often end up interviewing marketing directors.
Okay.
Instead of people that are perhaps more focused on the operations or have technical.
Thank you.
Mine is quick. So for your case studies, now you're saying that you have two companies, I think, or I don't know. How many you have?
I can go back to the slide. It's still also work in progress.
Oh yeah.
So what I'm, yeah, so Mangiatorella is my sort of official secondment. It's also in the contract. So I will be working with them for 3 to 4 months. That's actually the most important one. The other ones are shorter term collaborations.
Yep. My question was, what are your requirements to be included in this case study for you? And if in your studying those cases, you are planning to do some more action research, some more transdisciplinary and have some impact, or only know what they have done?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that's also the reason. That's actually why I'm very happy with Mangiatorella being one of the longer-term collaborations, because from the first interviews and also from what I heard from Roberta is that their maturity level of sustainability is quite low, and they're very interested in developing knowledge on this topic. So for me, it's an interesting case to hear how they interpret certain concepts, and perhaps I can also really contribute something there. Of course, it's going to be a challenge, but I'm really, I'm hoping to make that lead to some sort of actual impact there. That would be great. Yeah.
So my question, Eric, is about, like, you mentioned the challenge on, these circular economy kind of wave, kind of changing continuously. How have you dealt with it so far?
I think I think my primary struggle there is that sustainability and circular economy seem to be growing in separate ways. And I think you also addressed that in your presentation, and more people are talking about this. We also saw this in the presentation by Ana Diaz about the interpretation at the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, constructing a circular economy case without thinking about the sustainability impacts. And I expected to see these two paradigms come together more in the last year, but I have the feeling that they're drifting away. And how I am dealing with it is, what I try to do in this paper is to have a sort of short chapter on my normative understanding of the concept and my interpretation of how circular economy would be valuable in practice. And I think all of us are positioning ourselves now somewhere in this debate, and I don't know if a solution will, or sort of concrete definition will arise in these coming 2 years, but yeah, it's a challenge, yeah.
More questions? Well, I have one.
Okay.
Related with the case studies and related with the simulation. So 2 questions. So if I well understood, you are not planning to use all these companies as official case studies?
No, exactly, yeah.
That's the answer?
Yeah, because we talked about this in China for a bit, and that's going to be too ambitious.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that. I was trying to rewind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that is something it is also, I know that some of the companies take longer than other ones to respond to emails, for example. So I still want to keep in contact with them, but I'm not going to use information from all.
As a plan B, we never know.
Exactly.
That's fine.
Yeah.
And regarding the dissemination, I think you mentioned that the first paper will be a review paper, right? Is the one that you will present next Wednesday?
Yeah, that's a review paper. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's just a comment. In fact, it's a comment for everybody. It's an interesting thing that some of the researchers are planning to publish as a first paper, a review paper, more than 3 or 4 review papers. So, in fact, if we manage to publish all this stuff, we'll have several review papers in the next, 6 months or more or less. So it's interesting. From a project, several review papers from a single project. We'll see what we'll manage to publish.
So when you sent the survey, it was to the circular economy networks in Italy and the Netherlands. But so why did you decide to send it through that channel? And what about maybe, are you maybe forgetting about companies who don't see themselves as circular, but doing circular things and don't associate with these circular economy networks?
I think that's might actually be a risk to address companies that primarily brand themselves as being circular, instead of companies that might maybe not use the word, but still have operations that are very much in line with the concept. But yeah, that is, you know, that's a big pool of organizations, and it's hard to reach them in an efficient way. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Thank you very much. It was just really for the Circular Economy Network. Are there sort of set criteria that companies have to meet to go into that network, or is it if they say they're into circular economy practices, that's sufficient?
Yeah, Anna knows this, but I just wanted to comment that I was surprised by the diversity of organizations that are included in these networks. So you have everything from big multinational construction companies to very local clothing sharing organizations. So, but Anna, you maybe know if there are some criteria.
So we just decided on some criteria, and then the ones that we made is that it has to be a company. So officially, yeah, to be it can also be a one-man company, but it has to be a company, and it has to have a website. And then, because that was already not the case for many, so those were the two criteria we used.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay, that depends. That depended on the company. In some companies you just had to, like in Italy, there was also this network, Grondstofakkoord, so you just have to sign a certain statement of why you think you are circular, and then others are membership based. So it really depends on the network. Yeah, it's different. Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Thank you. So, let's move on. Thank you very much. So the next and the last presenter is Kathleen. I will try. Offenkoer? No? Say again. Opfekoer. Okay, thank you. Kathleen, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Yes, I am the last presenter, so it will not take too long. But my name is Caitlin Opferkuch. It's a German last name, but I am Australian, and now I'm living in Lisbon, so globalization. Yes, so I am the work package in Work 5, which is actually titled Measuring the Impacts of Circularity. And so within that, I am 5.3, the final one. So you've heard a lot about what Eric and Anna are doing, and I'm sort of the final step of that. So I'm combining the fields of measuring the impacts of circularity, but also with, at a company level specifically, but also the communication of these impacts. So this corporate communication and how external communication. So it's one thing to have these assessment methodologies and to measure these impacts, but if the message is never being communicated, then how, what is the point of this? We need to see how it's being communicated and how that's contributing to circular economy conceptualization, I guess I could say. So just, I included some photos from China because a lot of us were together. So here's Kieran shopping that I took. So just to update a bit on my progress. So the formalities with Universidade Aberta, I completed the final course that I had to do for this previous semester. I've also completed my research proposal, but I still need to present it and sort of defend it in October. I'm not sure yet the date, but so I have some opportunities for feedback within this workshop to perhaps improve it. Also, I started 2.5 months later than everyone, so I'm sort of at a different stage of the research, but nonetheless, I have made some achievements. So yes, of course, I have the questionnaire or practitioner questionnaire with Eric and Anna, but I'm not really going to say anything about it. I presented research at 2 conferences, which I will expand upon next, and I got my Portuguese residency card in May, so I'm legal in the country. That's progress, yeah. Yes, so at the ISDRS conference, which a lot of us, well, majority of us went to in Nanjing in China, I presented the first steps of my research, and the title was Mapping the Missing Link to Corporate Reporting of Circular Economy Performance. So basically it was the results of my literature review, which covered both academic and grey literature, of course, and these sort of sustainability reporting tools and guidelines. Yeah, I think so it's sort of essentially answering the research question of how does literature suggest companies should report circular economy performance. So I sort of took the format of reporting as the corporate communication tool, because it's a tangible tool, and it's an annual, it's something that's out there as opposed to perhaps, verbal or informal communication. And that was sort of the first step to try and look at what companies should be doing, or what, does the literature suggest they should do. And then the next steps, I can look at actually what's being done. I also went to the Industrial Ecology Conference in Beijing, same shirt, shorter hair, obviously. So I presented a poster, and it was sort of following on from what I presented in Nanjing. It was basically the research plan that I have, and sort of ideas and questions. And actually, for me personally, it was very interesting to do a presentation and a poster at 2 different conferences, and I clearly see sort of the advantages and disadvantages of both now, and it was a good opportunity for people to just walk past and constantly ask you questions or give advice or contacts, and it was really interesting. So my secondments, I'm, as Estefania mentioned before, both her and I have secondments at the Taiwan Circular Economy Network in Taipei, in Taiwan. So I'm going quite soon, actually, the 8th of October. And so the contacts at the network are organizing an event in Taipei called the Asia Pacific Circular Economy Roundtable. So it's quite a relevant event, obviously. And I'm hoping that this event will be a really good opportunity to build a case study, look into the scenario in Taiwan, but also it's a lot of people from industry, they have field visits and whatnot. It's Portugal, it's fine, don't worry. From the noise, sorry. So I'm really looking forward to that, and that's a big part of my work right now, preparing for this, arranging interviews and this is sort of the first step, and then I will go again and make a more concrete plan once I'm sort of immersed in the Taiwan circular economy scene, I guess you could say. This is me and Anna on the Great Wall. I'm also, my second supervisor is Roberta Salomone. So I plan to go to Italy probably, or Messina specifically, in February to work more closely with her and utilize her supervision. I'm also hoping to go to Pescara at some point to work more closely with Eric and Anna, although Eric said he probably wants to come here to Lisbon, so we'll see what happens. So challenges, maybe the secret dragons of our research, I don't know, it's trying to make it imagery. Aligning the timelines with the other researchers, as a lot of people have mentioned, is quite difficult, as we all have very busy schedules, as well as our supervisors. Also for me personally, organizing the secondments and making sure there's a purpose for the research and not just going for the sake of going, because we are traveling a lot, and so how can we really maximize the time of our supervisors and the purpose of the research. Of course, with Taiwan, there's many challenges with the language and a new culture, but I'm very confident the contacts we have will provide quite a good introduction, so it will be up to me to see what I can do. And also, as Eric mentioned, the theory and the never-ending expanding inventory of circular economy articles. I think after I came back from holiday, there was so many published in September, October, November 2019. So you sort of think, oh, I have to start again or something, and how do I know this is a challenge? And also the idea of conferences. I think we've also seen that we're all going to a lot, and for me it's a challenge, when is the best time to go? How do you choose which one? Or just to make the most impact, is it better to really wait for your research and go to one, or should you spread it out? I think that's something maybe we can all discuss. And I guess the advantage of going last, I was listening to everyone speak and I thought I would bring something up. There was a presentation and a discussion at the Industrial Ecology Conference in Beijing, and there was Professor Manfred Lenzen, who's at the University of Sydney in Australia, and he was talking about, we talk about the impacts of our research and how do we're trying to, translate our research into action and to all these kind of things. But of course, we keep presenting our research to just academic people, and it's how do we get to that next step and things like this. So he presented this slide, and I apologize for the bad quality. I had damaged my phone. But so basically, he was talking about, specifically to research, like has supply chain research influenced the Paris targets? And so what he did was he mapped the countries, which are represented as circles, and then on the bottom, you have the carbon footprint, so carbon emissions in tons per capita. And then he mapped them against the Paris pledges, which was measured in a percentage reduction that each country had pledged. And basically the green line is the target. But of course, there's not really, he said, there's not really, you can see no sort of a correlation between how much a country is emitting and how much they are pledging to reduce. And then he went on to say, okay, but see the countries that are above the green line that have actually pledged something to do something, what is it about these countries that makes it, well, why are they there? And so he compared them with a lot of different indicators from the OECD, and the only thing he could find essentially was generosity. So it was keeping the same on the y-axis, the Paris pledges. He mapped it against generosity. And of course, it's still not consistent, but you can see there is sort of a trend line and a positive correlation between higher generosity and a higher pledge score, Paris pledge score. But so it was this realization again that he was quite pessimistic, to be honest, and he was really saying, we're doing all these models and we're building these scenarios, but at the same, that's not changing an individual or just a normal person's behavior. And that's what it all comes down to, right? So obviously I was then depressed and I said, what are we doing? No, I was sort of like, okay. And then I thought about it more and it was sort of, well, we have this group of researchers and we have this reach, and so how can we, as a Cresting group, actually have the impact that we want to have, or not even as individuals, but as a group. And I think that's a challenge that we have, and perhaps we need to utilize these workshops to make that, because I think it's really interesting. We can do all we want, but if we're not spreading our research to non-academic or non-industry people, then the reach is shortened. Anyway, that's what I was thinking as I was listening, because also Heather was talking about her research, asking people in the community that knew about circular economy, and it was very low, right? We're also talking about the consumer responsibility and the consumer perceptions, when none of us are really talking about this. So yeah, just to conclude, the next research steps. So as we've said, the survey dissemination in Portugal and possibly Taiwan, and the data analysis of these surveys. And then going on to the second phase of my personal research, to essentially the next research question I will attempt to answer is how are companies reporting their circular economy performance, and how has this changed over time? So that's my next steps. And personally, I want to continue my Portuguese language course in Lisbon. So in saying that, I will say obrigada.
Obrigado, Kathleen.
De nada.
So we have time for questions.
No, summed it up perfectly.
Yeah, it's after lunch.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's hard to.
How we measure the generosity?
I know. We could also be just critical about this, but it's the OECD measure it to do with in a country about the social welfare, how much foreign aid they also give, and things like this. So we could also criticize this, but
yeah, sure.
But as a base,
but
I think
was thinking, yes,
the generalization, that it's on the. Yeah, that's a part of it, but also about the social welfare system within the country.
Interesting.
Yeah, I thought. Yeah.
Since you talked about the impact as an individual researcher, as a group, have you come across any ideas of your own? I know we have to discuss this.
Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking maybe one day of a workshop we could invite the public and we do some sort of interactive workshop or something like this, which is a more tangible outreach of our research within the community as a starting point or something like this, maybe, I don't know.
Thanks. On the subject of impact, I think some of our impact audience is kind of with us today in the form of our advisory board, so we can, work together with those connections.
Yeah.
Also, although it is obviously very late in the day, our final conference will be a good opportunity to invite people from outside academia that we would like to come along and share our results with them and make future plans. But yes, I agree, other things need to happen between now and then.
But also just for personal motivation, because it's quite a depressing topic sometimes to keep reading about the negative impacts of sustain, or how bad perhaps people are doing or something like this. So it's nice to share the positives perhaps. Yeah.
So, one hand over there.
Hello.
Hi.
So when you're looking at the communication of companies in terms of circular economy, are you deciding to only focus on reporting, or you also want to look at the other types of communication? That's one thing. And the second is if you are trying to see communication in companies as a way to impact their consumers or the wider public, and how could you work on that if you look to measure that?
I think, reporting is my starting point because it's a tangible output, and I think that, as Walter mentioned before, it also impacts directly the investors and perhaps the more potential for change in the company level anyway. So the message of circular economy, how it's being represented, will influence potentially how much is being invested in the following year and things like this. So it's an interesting, it's not on the individual yet, of course, but for my topic of company level and communication, I think that's a good place to start. What was the second question? Yeah, I think then it would be other sort of communication tools. But it's also like, how do you narrow this down? Because there's so many different ways of communication and things like this. So I think that it would be more my individual communication or something of my research or our research and things like this to increase, because I can't really, we can change how the companies, but then going into marketing and the marketing manager and things like this, and depending on the data and what they want to share. I don't know. Do you know what I'm saying though? Yeah. For my topic, that's the way that I'm sort of going, and it would be really nice, but I don't want to get too ahead of myself, so I'm going to focus on that first and then see.
Thank you very much. Really interesting project, and I guess there's the issue of how to put messages across, but also how to be confident that you're reaching the people who need to hear those messages, which is also very challenging. And then what criteria do you use to decide that second category?
Yeah.
Because a bit like we were hearing earlier, there's probably not a lot of point speaking to the converted. It's those that really need to embrace circularity, which you somehow got to reach across to. But the danger with those is that they might not listen anyway. It's really tricky. And, so I can see lots of challenges here, but it's very, very good work.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you. So, thank you, Kathleen.
Thank you.
So now we have two separated things. We'll have the advisory board meeting in that room, the room number 2, sala número 2, that one, and you can meet over there. And the remaining, the researchers, the ESRs, and the supervisors could meet informally here or there until the advisory board meeting finished the meeting. Yes, the coffee break will be more informal, so we'll be, at 4 p.m. we'll be around. They will be around, so we can go there and come to the meeting, so we don't need to stop. So that's the idea. So thank you very much. Let's go to the next stage of the day.